ma guarda che persona non ti miri, che sia nemica di gentil natura. Be courteous, don't allow people to look at you, to deal with you, if they are not kind people. It was April 10 or 11th, 1951. I was 9 years old. And my father, who was a horse breeder, brought me to a cattle market in Modena. He had an idea of me inheriting his profession. He had two sons, one a musician and the other one professor of literature. The poor man died young, so he could tolerate. Well, and during the evening, we were staying in an inn. He gave me money for going to a movie, to see a movie. And I went, in spite of the fact that I was very young. He trusted me for being able to. And I went, and I entered a hall, which I believed it was a movie hall. But there was no ticket there, and inside there was strange groups of people, a group, another group, all rather old people, or half an age at my eyes then. And then a strange thing on a platform. There was a chair with a velvet chair with a strange footstool on the left. And I said, what happens here? At that epoch, I didn't know what music was at all, if not for the common listening to radio. And so I sat down in the first row. I can remember that the seat was so high that with my feet I couldn't reach the floor. And at the moment all those respectful, venerable people sat down, and I said, what happens now? The lights were switched off, just one lamp, one light on the platform, and then a lady came out with this guitar in her hands. She looked like a sort of, I would say, a wizard, I was terrified. Long hair, dark, with a long dress. It was blue-green, of the color of seas, aquamarina. And she sat down, and she started playing. I went completely out of myself. See. When I read of the young Segovia listening to classical guitar for the first time in his life, played by Gabriel Ruiz de Almodóvar in the Albaicín in Granada, what he says about himself, about his own reaction in that moment could be the same thing. Such a strong emotion that I said myself, God, this is paradise, this is... So at the end, I wasn't able to come out of my chair. I was staying there. At the end, the lady came and, now, what are you doing here? Where are your parents? Oh, what? I couldn't speak. Then she brought me in the dressing room. And there was, with other people, that lady who had changed her attitude, her expression. She was now just a girl, smiling and so on. And they explained it to him, the situation, no? And she came to me, and with her Italian jumping with accent, She told me, oh, God, no. And at the moment my father is here in the inn and here. So an old man who was there, not that old at my eyes, said, well, I have to pass there. I will bring him to his father. So, and he did. And at that moment, it was my life was marked. Needless to say, she was da presti. Excuse me. A very good way of beginning. The only way I can talk about myself, because I don't know who I am, except for what I am doing. Life is just, in my opinion, what we are doing in life. So, by telling you that I am a composer, an editor, a scholar, I have been a teacher, I have been a concert player in my early time, and I am also a writer of musical books, a biography about Andrés Segovia, a biography about Mario Castelnuovo-Tedesco, a sort of description of the repertoire of the guitar, and also an autobiography of mine. Here is all what I am. All what I have to say about myself is what I did. I composed music, and I took care of music composed by other musicians, other composers, and I do music all the day. I have no life. I am not associated to any club. I am not married, though I have an adoptive son, an artist, a painter. He too. I have nothing. So my day is making music all the day. I don't play anymore, but I have such an amount of things to do in music. There is nothing else deserving anyway. All what I attempted doing in my life, besides my borders as a musician, was a failure, a disaster. But I had just attempted. I had not went too far, so it was easy for me to take a step backward. Andrés Segovia was the king of the guitar, and of course I felt as a duty, as a strong responsibility to understand his art for me. And so I was very poor when I was young, and I bought all of his records and all of his scores, printed scores. Those were available then. And I think I understood his art from within. Not, you do that, I will try to do that the same. No. I want to understand which are the squares of your art. And I did. I was not like him. He was a king, and he was a great artist, a genius, with a gift for communication, but not in the way of a hero, of a dominator, in the way of authority. He had authority in all what he did. One note made by Segovia was something that came from a process, and everything you did has a why and a how. Nothing was casual, all had a direction. I didn't go studying with him because I belonged to another world, and so it would have been useless or maybe a damage for me to go to study with him. But I respected him, and sometimes I disagreed with his opinions, and I didn't hesitate to write and to sing with my name my disagreement to him, but respectfully. many of his students described me to him as an enemy. But when it was a matter of taking the artistic direction of the foundation of the museum entitled to him, I was called. So Segovia was much more intelligent than his students. He was right. Castelnuovo-Tedesco said, "No matter how good and passionate your work as a concert player will give place one day to your talent as a composer, which is your destiny." Indeed, indeed. He told this to me, and at that epoch, mind, I was very concerned about guitar repertoire, and I was trying to make it broader and more substantial with a publisher who supported my efforts with investing a lot of money. And so, mind, I felt responsible of that repertoire. This is why I gave concerts, but I was not a concert player. Of course, I could play. I believe, honestly, I could play very well, but I didn't feel in my own like a fish out of water. You know, I am not interested to audiences, to people, to the sort of life. I hate traveling. All towns reduced to an airport or a railway station, a taxi, a hotel room, and back. So mind. The first thing I did when I went to play, to Amsterdam or to Hamburg, was immediately going to the museum, to the art gallery. Once it happened that I was a late comer to a concert, my own concert, because I lost my sense of time before. I was in Munich, mind, in the Lembach Gallery, and I discovered there a series of small paintings by Wassily Kandinsky, which I didn't know. I didn't know at all, because they were paintings belonging to his youthful age. Landscape from Russia, from I was, and I nothing. I could do a concert without missing one note, but I wasn't there. Castelnuovo-Tedesco. Go there, please. In the second open, you see there is a box. Ecco, keep it out. Look. These are his letters to me. Huh? And do you know what is there? Here in this photograph he is with Walter Gieseking. Here there is a fountain pen inside in a sealed envelope. It was the pen he used all his American life through for composing. And it was given to me as a signal, go on. Here I stop, now you begin, go on. So what else? I am taking care of his music, and I have written his biography. Castelnuovo-Tedesco was Nonno Mario, Uncle Mario to me. I was 25 when we started corresponding. I believe in style, what makes a composer and his work recognizable, really personal, detectable at first listening. Well, I am not, I belong to my tradition. I am a composer belonging to Italian tradition. So, in my music, the square is that culture, not only musical approach, but culture which could be properly described as Italian. My music sings not in the way of Puccini or Verdi, and I like counterpoint in the way of the ancient Italian masters, Palestrina, Gesualdo da Venosa, ecco. And then I was influenced from two different opposite sources. From one side, Manuel de Falla, and the other side, Sergei Prokofiev. Ecco. This is my... Ecco. Of course, I had an instruction from a composer who was an heir of the generazione dell'80, Respighi, Pizzetti, Malipiero, Casella, Alfano, those masters of composition, those people who had an enormous ability in composing, counterpoint, and you know, I am basically one of their late prosecutors, heir, and they write music which is listenable, perfectly listenable by everybody. If a listener is acquainted with La Mer by Debussy, or Preludes for piano by Debussy, or Ma Merlois by Maurice Ravel, or El Amor Brujo by Falla, or Alexander Niesky, or the piano sonatas by Prokofiev, can listen to my music without the smallest effort. I am not a composer who gives problems to listening. And in this sense, being a contemporary composer is being considered a contemporary composer for me is a big handicap, because when audiences read in an announcement contemporary music, they escape. No, my music is for everybody. I mean, not only for those who have as a basic acknowledgement, musical culture, the television, but if they have a bit, just a bit. So, style is a selection of gestures. In music, you can do thousands, millions of things. Basically, you have a character. When you are a boy, a kid, you have a musical gift. Then you pass through an instruction, an education, and you achieve a personality. Personality is what you learn and you absorb from your masters or from your models. Either you have direct personal contact with them or just with reading what they did, but you absorb from them. And then you are a powerful, a rich person. Normally, artists stop at this level. We have a lot of personalities, which is made by character and by what they learned. Style is the following grade, and few people go there. Styles is when one decides to give up with all what is personality, what has absorbed, achieved, and established a direct, very intimate contact with a few things. Style is not as rich as personality, but it is much purer. It is like diamond, you know. This is why when you listen 4 bars, you say Johann Sebastian, Wolfgang Amadeus, and you say, is it, you know. This is why Chopin, who wasn't a great virtuoso, composed music which had a lot of style, Chopin style. Thomas, Chopin, contemporary of his, Thalberg, was a great personality and was a king of the piano. And he gave in 1 month as many concerts as Chopin did in all of his life. But he hadn't the style. He had a great personality. So today we can listen and also perform his piano music with curiosity, with respect, but it hasn't a style, because there are other 20 composers who have a similar personality. Style is unique. And it is absolute purity. Less elements than style, than personality, but brought to a level of absolute individuality. I have no connection with my pieces, except when I am composing them, of course, yes. I don't believe to be gifted. I have just a connection with a source which I cannot neither name nor describe, which dictates me what I have to do. And I work as a wireless station, a radio broadcasting station. I receive encrypted signals, and I translate them into accessible things. This is all. So I don't feel a sense of property, of, well, this is mine. No. It happened that I was touched by that energy. I am responsible of how I handle it, form, style, accuracy, but I am not the owner of that. I don't know whether I am getting clear with this point. It is extremely important to me. Normally, it is not something definite. It is an atmosphere, a sort of, I'm here and I perceive something which I cannot describe, I cannot grasp, but I know it exists. And so the work is like a ferret, no? Working and working till when the gold stone comes out. It's a search. Normally it happens with, I would say, 3 notes, no? Ecco. Or a chord, or a rhythm without notes. And this is connected to that atmosphere you felt before. I don't use a guitar, I don't use any instrument composing. I write just by memory, of course. After many years of practicing guitar, I have in my mind what I call a virtual guitar. I can, if you give me a piece of music, a written piece of music, I listen to it immediately. I can, and when I write, when I compose, I imagine the sounds. I stay away from listening with the playback, because this is not the good thing to do at the end. But when you compose, you have just to follow that red wire, no? And not no, nothing else. The idea can be beautiful, very beautiful. You write a beautiful phrase. Well, don't go on, throw it away, because 3 days after, you would discover that it is something else. From Pierluigi da Palestrina to, I would say, Stravinsky, you have stolen it from somewhere. I used to say, when I have a good ideas, it is like having a beautiful umbrella. You know, when you go to the bank in a rainy day and you come out of the bank, finished your job with a beautiful umbrella, you do 100 meters and you say, God, this is not mine. And you go back. You got to give it back to the owner, which is, of course, very angry. So if the idea is, you know, maybe go on, this is yours. And then from that, I would say, uncertain, humble, still not a... You have to start with the work. The given material, the basic idea, the given material is your starting point. And since there to on, you pick up a composition. A composition comes from the observation of what happens. It's useless to start with, I have all in my mind, I have just to write it. I don't believe those who say this, either they repeat other composers' job, or they do nothing, but really, or they lie, simply. Really, composing is just following a track, going along a trail which you discover step by step. And this can bring you very distant from where you began. You know? Ecco. So I don't feel as interesting as my music can be. I am not... I finished a piece, consummatum est, and go. And go. Of course, I wish to my pieces, to the pieces which I wrote, to be handled, to be read, to be interpreted, performed, and listened by a sensible person, sensitive person. I don't need they are doctors in music. I need they are sensitive people. And in the ancient Italian poetry, Francesco Petrarca or Guido Cavalcanti or many other poets, they use it, finishing a poem, telling something to that poem, no? Before pushing it in the world. There is a marvelous set of verses by Guido Cavalcanti in his Ballata dall'esilio, a ballad from the exile. And after singing his pain, he speaks to his own poetry and he says, ma guarda che persona non ti miri, che sia nemica di gentil natura. Be courteous. Don't allow people to look at you, to deal with you, if they are not kind people. Studi di virtuosità e di trascendenza. I worked on this project since when I stopped my career as a player in June 81. On May 31 I gave my last concert, and then I started seriously with composing. Before I had written few small pieces for friends, but they are significant to me. But this was not the game, my game. My game began in 81 with Studi di virtuosità e trascendenza. What the title means, what is virtuosità is of course virtuosity, but then e di trascendenza. Transcendence, in Meyer, stems from you have not to play music, you have to be the music. I used to say I used to tell to my student, if someone when listening to you thinks, believes and says that you are very good, you are not good enough. You will be very good the day when they will listen only to the music with no trail of effort, difficulty, as you were simply, nothing. You are that. So in public, in a public concert, the music has to be the substance. There is the music, the listener, the interpreter, and the listener, and all of this makes a unique circulation. Is a unique phenomenon, not separated. The player who aims to stand up, no? To be. This is a very vulgar and imperfect level. Transcendence is when you make music as you hear the music, natural. You can do that if you haven't at your shoulders, in your background, millions of efforts, of hours of practicing. But I know, when you look to Leonardo, do you believe? When you look to Mona Lisa, it was good? No, I don't believe so. I look to Mona Lisa. When you look to a Monet landscape, he was a good painter, he had a good technique. This is what I mean. So transcendence is something that goes beyond the human body, beyond the effort, beyond the... I think a man who has understood this point, but was Arturo Benedetti Michelangeli, of course, and other great interpreters, Sergio Celibidache, I could mention a lot of them. Not those who make a lot of, to say how heroes they are, how great they are. They are very small. Great is when one disappears, transcends of material, of, flesh and bones. One guy among guitarists who has understood this deeply is Lukasz Kuropatevski. There are marvelous players of guitar, but the man who makes the greatest effort in that direction, an effort to borrow, to eliminate any effort, is Lukasz. I've listened recently to a set of small pieces he has recorded, and here is something, I admire many guitarists, and among them several very good interpreters of my music. But I think that the man who has taken that direction is him. And I have noticed that his concert programs are very much addressed to that point. No exhibition. If not performed by other musicians, my music wouldn't be performed at all, because I can't play my own music. And I never attempted to do it. I have clear in my mind it, but I am not a man of action. I am not Navy SEALs. I wrote my music because I was, I needed to write it for giving a sense to my life. I could have been, I believe, a successful lawyer or scientist or a rich dentist or so on. Or a lawyer for divorces, I could. But this would have been missing the sense of life. So I felt a need of being an artist, and then this went toward the guitar. Okay, accepted. I had to do that. And I did. If my music will survive, it is because our culture, the humanistic culture, the remainders of humanistic culture we belong to, will survive. If my music will not survive, it will not be alone in perishing. In an epoch when kids will believe that Schoenberg was a pilot, a driver of race cars, my music couldn't survive. Udii tra il sonno le cianelle, udito un suono di ninne nanne, Ci sono in cielo tutte le stelle, ci sono i lumi nelle capanne. Sono venute dai monti oscuri le ciaramelle senza dir niente, hanno destata nei suoi tuguri tutta la buona povera gente. Giovanni Pascoli, canti di Castelvecchio. We are approaching the Christmas, and during the Christmas, it passed in our village, people coming from the mountain came with playing their instruments. And udita il sonno le ciaramelle, udito il suono di ninne nanne. Ci sono in cielo tutte le stelle, ci sono i lumi nelle capanne. The music. Sono venute dai monti oscuri le ciaramelle senza dir niente, hanno destata nei suoi auguri tutta la buona povera gente. Oh. When you have something in your mind and you know that somebody else had already written it, then who, where? Sasha was an angel. No, was an angel, floating. You see, one time in Chioggia, near Venice, we came out of 73. I remember vividly this. We came out of the hotel. It was me, at the young representative of the category, him, John Duarte, and the late Ruggero Chiesa, and somebody else. And we expected to cross the way. Ecco. Sasha, no, he came out and a taxi was coming. It was just a moment, no? I had my Ramirez blang on the back. And he looked at me, oh, he said, you saved my life. I am not sure, but perhaps a couple of one leg broken. It was, Sasha was like that. And other times, we were here in Vercelli, in the theater, listening to a concerto of a Russian orchestra. A pianist whose name I can't remember, but he was a famous pianist, however, a very good one. Came and they started with Tchaikovsky concerto, no? And it was very slow, in my opinion. And Sasha was there. And then he turned it to me and he said, too fast. And I say, Sasha, but if so, why, when you, sometimes, very seldom, not often, you indicate the metronome mark in your guitar music, and it is terribly fast. But he was serious, no, oh, too fast. He was an angel, a man looking at you. He was always looking to something behind you. Father was a man never completely present, you know, present, but also a bit, a bit elsewhere. This was Tansman. Another time, it was amazing. In a competition of competition for guitar music, it was a pile of things. There was the Alvaro Company, distinguished Italian guitarist and composer, very good composer, with a good compositional background training. And he was complaining with me, Angelo, so many things, I had to spend a lot of days with reading and reading and reading. Well, me not so much, but many hours, yes, and such. At the end, there were three. It was a competition in 73 devoted to the memory of Castelnuovo-Tedesco. Composing competition. It was left with no prize because mind. It was hopeless session. And they said, it doesn't seem you are judging a composition. It seems you are selling tickets. Musicians are funny, very funny. Well, I was very concerned, not with my career as a concert player, but with the repertoire. So I tried to expand it. You know, when you get a composer like Ferenc Farkas, Hungarian, the teacher of Ligeti, who writes 24 preludes for you, and you have a publisher spending a lot of money for publishing them, you feel responsible of that. My activity as a concert player was entirely devote to represent, in my own way, that new repertoire. And it wasn't aimed to get sort of acknowledgement as a virtuoso, no. I played just new music in a way that was recognized by musicians, not much by guitarists, because I wasn't effective, I could, and so, but it wasn't my game. It was my game to promote that music, but not in the way of staying on the platform, I will tell you a short story, anecdotal story. You know that when you play concerts, you stay in the dressing room of the hall of the theater, and you listen. Three bell rings means that the public is invited to enter. Two rings that it's and one ring. After 1 minute, someone will knock at the door. And I was so emotionally involved in all of that once in an important theater here in northern Italy, when the man came and knocked at the door, nobody answered. And I was so emotionally involved with my activity, with my task as a player, that I had felt asleep. They had to shake me for coming. So you have understood everything. Composing was my own task, yes. And also, I like also editing, but not going on the platform and I enjoy the concerts which I enjoy more are those given in church by organ players, because you can't see them. It's senseless to bow them at the end of each piece, no? At the end, the small man comes out, okay, ciao, ecco, bye-bye. Well, first of all, you have, before working on the piece, you have to detect who composed it. When Mrs. Emilita Segovia and his son, Dr. Carlos Andres, entrusted me with the care of the Segovia archive, I found there a good deal of music, but there were 3 or 4 pieces that weren't seen at all. Who composed them? Then, to decide that you have found the guilty is not easy at all. I spare you. I could write novels about this, no? But here another little story. In '93, I was invited by the librarian of Cento, a little town near Ferrara, to give a lecture about Luigi Mozzani, composer, guitarist, but above all, a great luthier. So I went there in that, and 3 hours before the lecture, I asked the lady who was the director of that library to show me the archive, the papers of Mozzani, and she did. It was a table like this, a bit bigger, with several small mountains of music before. I can recall this because an ex-student of mine, a friend, was with me, and I went 3 times around or 4 times around the table, no, like a dog, and looking. Suddenly I saw a small yellow paper, sheet of paper down the, and I said myself, the detective, you know, Maigret. You know, the handwriting, the calligraphy, is already artwork. You can at sight detect whether who composed, who wrote this, is a composer or is a, I don't know, an amateur, no, or a guitarist. I saw that handwriting, and I said to myself, oh, God. Then I read the first 4 pages of music, a double sheet of paper. What is that? And I felt the music, you know? Oh. God. Signature, respighi. Then covered all of this because, you know, careful, because there are the musicologists in around. That archive was there for 40 years. Nobody had. And I said to that lady, please, could you kindly have this set of music photocopied for me? I will pay for them. You will send them to my address, to my home address. And he said, good, but it is a very big amount of photocopies. Yes, I will do. I didn't say I found, no. I didn't say anything. So when the parcel, the courier delivered me the parcel, that sheet was the first on the row because they had worked reversely. I thrown away all the rest, and I kept that. And years after, I published it. So this is detection. Conservatories belong to the system. They teach the right thing for the wrong purpose. The right thing is music. The wrong person is promoting those who make music to being the number one. I don't believe in this system where arts are exploited for getting successful, for getting rich, for getting powerful, for becoming an influencer. I don't believe it. I believe that art is something much higher than this. Of course, a person can have success, but it is the result of the value, intrinsic value of his art, not because so there are courses where the teacher explains how to earn. They should read Orazio, Lucrezio, Cicerone. They need. I am not a good interpreter of my own music. I never played it, and I avoid giving lessons with my music on the stand. I am not a good interpreter of my music because I finished to play when I began composing. Of course, I can play guitar, but not at the level with my music needs, calls for, or even the repertoire. The second part of the question, I never played, and I avoid giving lessons with my music. This is curious. If you bring me a sonata by Ponce or by Castelnuovo-Tedesco or anything, I can explain you exactly all what is behind the notes, no? And I think that such an explanation brings the performer at the doors of the music. I don't give models. You should do this, no copy. No. The composer did that. This is the construction. This is the house, the various room, and all the together, no? When you are responsible of this, you are made responsible of this, you have to decide yourself what you want. This is why none of my students was similar to another one. Each of them was led to understand the music. How to make it, it was a matter of theirs. A respect for. With my music, I can do that because when I write a phrase, then I write it 100 times more to decide. I cancel, I erase, then I recover what I erased. From this viewpoint, the computer is very useful. And when at the end I have a piece on it, and I listen, oh God, but I had written it in the other way, maybe it was better. Oh, I am not sure I did the right choice, so on. And the student, or the play, and they say, yes, okay, but I am not sure. When a piece of another composer is in my hands, I have just one way of reacting. When a piece of mine is in my hands, I have 1,000 ways of reacting. So, I can be more specifical if you want. Stravinsky was a lively spark sometimes, used to say, don't interpret anything, play as it is written. But this is senseless because written are symbols and symbols are mute. So from the notation to the sound, there is a space in between, and this space is filled by the interpreter and by his mind. We read apparently from a stand, but when we do one thing, we refer to an imaginary stand which we have created in our mind. This is the point. Interpreting means creating a musical image dictated by the symbols, by the notation, but then elaborated by ourselves. My teaching was exactly this, to make everything which was written clear as possible, and then to stimulate the student. How would you do that? Now that you know that this is the relationship, the connection, how can you solve this? Well, I could do this, I could do that. Think about it, and then decide. The next time you will show me what you have decided. This makes interpreters. It's too easy, too quick, too direct, and senseless to offer models. Of course, A great concert player can play much better than his students, but he is him and they are them. So why mixing the chords? I have to grow up interpreters, to breed interpreters, not imitators. And as a composer, I am very open to accept interpretations which differ very much from what I had imagined. Normally, interpreters are better than composers to realize. No, we had more or less 3 epochs. The epoch of the beginning, the end of 18th century, and all the 19th century, when the music was created by guitarists themselves. Then, since the new century, 20th century, we have a lot of music, and good music, created by composers who were not guitarists. But in these last 30 years or so, 40 years or so, we have a sort of connection. Guitarists who compose with a compositional background. Ecco, who can write a piece for orchestra, who can write a fugue in 3 hours. You know, not the sort of Sunday morning. You know, sometimes I used to think of this. If a great composer nowadays would decide, a composer who doesn't play guitar, no, Penderecki, would decide, great, no name, would decide to give a guitar recital, every guitarist would tell, oh God, how is it possible? He's a great musician, but he hasn't studied guitar. And then the same person who hasn't studied composition, not even for one day, becomes a composer from Saturday night to Sunday morning with no scandal. Like if composing was a sort of, so as to say, natural following, secondary occupation of those who can really make music, play, you know, because play is making music. God, yes, we have concert players indeed, thank goodness. But we have also composers, we have also musicologists, we have also the public. And all of these are all on the same level. So, Latin proverb, ne sutor ultra crepidam. Everybody should do his own job. We are enjoying a good time in this because we have, I believe, half a dozen of good composers who had an approach to music through the guitar and not through the piano. This is all. Blitz-section. Say the first things that comes to your mind. Bach or Mozart? Mozart. Bartók or Schoenberg? Bartók. Giuliani or Sor? Giuliani. Sor was a guy, mind you. When he was young, when a piece didn't come in performance, like he wanted, he used to break the guitar on the shin, like a rock star. No, I wouldn't go to a brunch with Sor. No. Giuliani, yes. Because I am not a woman, so I would pass no danger. Giuliani was unremitting from this viewpoint. De Faglie Rodrigo, no comparison. De Faglie is 1,000 more than Rodrigo. Segovia or Presti, both. But my soul is with Presti. Are you a happy person? Not at all. I don't know what it is happiness besides being a word. I can be calm, I can be in serenity, I can be untroubled, but happiness. is something for babies, no? I never felt like this. I felt in harmony with something in the world, with trees. But I'm very much like a tree. I feel like a tree. But happiness, no, is not. I never felt that. I felt I'm glad I can be. I can have no trouble. This is the maximum I can. If a tree is a good tree or not, this will be judged by fruits. Or at least by the shadows it offers. You were present, and the question from you to our subscribers. Your present is music, of course, a CD of, a set of CDs with a beautiful collection of sonatinas performed by the excellent Italian guitarist Cristiano Porguedo. He is one of my most appreciated and faithful interpreters. There are several good composers here, like Cyril Scott, Carlos Surinac, people who has written very, very, very good music, and also my sonatinas, which, strangely enough, are sometimes longer than my sonatas. I don't know why. I cannot explain, but they are sonatina. Okay. My question, how were you able to tolerate such a long delirium chat? To stay there until the present from the beginning. I can't believe this.
Thank you.
You are very patient. Do you have your own special sort of inspiration? Yes, peace and silence.